Form.
We're doing it. We're really doing it. We're doing Wicked. Hi, everybody. Some of you have never seen our faces or heard our voices before. That's okay. Welcome. Hi there. This is Book versus Movie, a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies. And we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
Straight off the bat, I have several disclaimers. Just want to say. Number one, still coughing. I'm still coughing from my lingering ick that I had like over a month ago. So I might go off camera or, forgive me if I inadvertently cough. Number two, I'm just gonna come right out and admit this. I'm traveling right now. So I'm in a hotel. My audio is not ideal. And yes, don't come at me. I watched Wicked on my phone. I'd never seen it before, so I saw it for the first time on my phone. And if you've never seen Wicked, and I can't imagine you're listening or watching if you've never seen Wicked, but if you are, don't do that. Please don't do that. I cannot wait. I want to see it on a big screen. But we're going to get into all of that. If you are brand new, so here's the deal. Here's what we do here is it says book versus movie. And today there is genuinely a book and there's genuinely a script, which is also a book. And then there's a movie. We will actually consider any movie that's been adapted from any kind of original source. So if it's a nonfiction work or a magazine article or a play or a musical, right? It's March, so we're doing all musicals this month. A poem, a song. If we can get our hands on the source material, and you can too, without spending a lot of money, and as long as the movie is streaming on a major platform, it is up for consideration. We are still looking for ideas for musicals in March. We're just beginning March 2nd as we record this. So if you have suggestions for movie adaptations that you would like us to cover, if you would like to meet other listeners of this podcast or interact with us, there's a few places where you can do that on the internet.
We do have a basic Facebook page. Be sure to like it, but we're much more interactive in our private Facebook group. So you type in Book VS Movie Podcast Group in Facebook, and ask to join. And we really do just talk about books and movies there and ideas that people have. So it's a nice safe space on Facebook to hang out. We are also on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And in all those places, you spell out book versus and then movie. And then we have an old-timey email, book versus movie podcast, spell all that out at gmail.com. Send us your suggestions. We just ask that the movie be streaming on a major platform, and whatever that book may be, we need to be able to get our hands on it. It can't be something we have to buy off of eBay. That's just not going to work for us. And also, if you'd like some stickers, we just got some stickers. Send us your address via the email, and we will drop them in the mail for you right away.
I forgot there's one more disclaimer. If you are watching this on YouTube, on my channel at She's Not Your Mama, at Margot's channel at Margot Donahue, there's no way YouTube's going to let us play any of these clips. So apologies in advance. We'll be like, let's go to the clip, and then there'll be nothing, and you'll be very upset. And I'm sorry about it, but that's just going to happen. I'm just going to tell you right now. They have not been playing nice with the clips these days, and they're especially for something like Wicked, they're just not going to have it, I'm sure. But if you're here for the first time and you dig in what we're doing and you would like to help us keep the lights on around here, you can also support us on Patreon.
Yes, Patreon. We've been doing the show for 10 years now. So right now what we're doing is putting everything from 2023 and then previous to that on our Patreon wall. Recent episodes are Hustlers. That's based on a magazine article. Phantom of the Opera, Carmen Jones, Chicago, and Oklahoma. Plus we have just so many more. Also, what we post there are the clips you watched today. So you can actually sign up for Patreon for free, and you can see all these clips there. And also our old episodes are all for free in case you think maybe we should redo one of those, because we're always looking for those kind of suggestions. But we want to thank everybody that supports us on Patreon. We really appreciate it. But also you can support us by just subscribing to the show, also by leaving a review. If you're an Apple or Spotify or whatever, if you could do that for us, that'd be amazing. Or seriously, just tell a friend about the show. It helps us find our people.
We really, really appreciate it. And we've had just such a great conversation, especially leading people get very excited about musicals in March. And so there's already some good suggestions happening in the Facebook group. We're very excited about that. And we're also excited to talk about what we're doing next. And we'll get to that at the end of the show. So just before we got on the air, we were talking about uh, a little bit about the fandom of Wicked, which is ferocious and large.
They know their stuff.
They really do. We are not those people. We are absolute Wicked newbies. And here's why. Because we have to talk about the book. And I was doing a lot of, like, while I was traveling and like sitting in the airport and stuff, I was doing a little bit of poking around, I got to admit, on the Reddit, a little bit, the Wicked Reddit. And I did see, and I was reading from a while ago, from right before the movie came out. And so a lot of people were talking about the fact that the runtime of the movie which is only part one, is longer than the runtime of the entire musical. And a lot of speculation was going on about, like, oh, well, maybe they are incorporating more stuff from the original book, meaning the Wicked book, not the Wizard of Oz. And then there was even conversations like, oh, there's a book. I didn't realize that this was based on, so some people didn't know that it was based on a book called Wicked, and they thought it was just based on the Wizard of Oz. So yes, there is a book. There is an original book. We're going to talk a little bit about it. What's his name? Maguire or something.
Yes.
Gregory Maguire. And the book is called Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. It came out in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
Margot and I both read it when it came out. And it wasn't my thing. It was not my bag. And it's fine. It's not that it's not a bad book, and it's not poorly written or anything like that. Especially back then, this is a long time ago now. Just wasn't my thing,
30 years ago.
30 years ago, I love The Wizard of Oz. And The Wizard of Oz, if you've never read the original Wizard of Oz, highly recommend. The Wizard of Oz, by the way, has some super dark stuff in it. Let's be clear.
Absolutely.
Very dark and violent, super, very heavy themes that are in there that are very much glossed over in the Judy Garland and this version. So the Wicked book, if you've never read it, the Wicked book by Maguire, takes that and goes even darker. It gives us an even darker prequel, a la Star Wars Part 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just not my thing. It was just, I read it and I was like, so then when the Wicked musical came out, what year was that the musical came
2004. That's when it was on Broadway. I mean, it was workshop for a couple of years, and you're in San Francisco. It was in SF for a long time. I was there building the show.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, I heard there was a musical about that book, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go see that. I don't care about that. And so I dismissed Wicked the musical. And I even when the film came out, I was like, oh, that's great. People like it. And yes, even though I saw it on my phone and I'm not a fair judge and I've never seen it on stage, I was very wrong. So we'll get to that. But let's talk a little bit about the original book, just so people have a little bit of a baseline to work from here.
Well, let's just talk a bit about our author is Gregory Maguire. He's from Albany, New York. He was born 1954. He went to the university at Albany, Simmons University, Tufts University, where he got his PhD. He is a prolific writer. I was looking at the Wicked series is a series of 4 books. And then that's the Wicked Years. And there's Another Day. And then there's Elphie, which is another one. But he's also written a couple of dozen children's books. He's written some books for adults, short stories. This book was very, very popular, but he lives in Massachusetts with his husband and his 3 kids. This book was, like we said, very, very popular. You and I had a very tough time reading it because I have a tough time with fantasy in general. Unless I see the movie first, sometimes I can't read the book because I just can't picture things very well. But this book was very, very popular. And the thing was, is when they were turning this, the movie rights were sold right away. And the movie was going to be done several different ways, starting way back in the early 2000s before it even was theater. And then he sold the rights for theater. And then we have Winnie Holzman, who created My So-Called Life, by the way. That was her show. She's the writer for this piece. They decided to take different aspects, to make this into the musical that we know now. But the thing was, is that they could refer to The Wizard of Oz, the book, because that was in public domain, because it came out in 1860s, I believe, or it's set there anyway.
Yeah, remember when we covered The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And
We just re-released it recently, so you should be able to easily find it.
Yeah, it's kind of generally acknowledged that the Tin Man is a metaphor for some of these veterans that were returning from the Civil War and amputees.
Right.
So it's right post American Civil War.
Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to use those aspects of it, but also Warner Brothers had to give the okay to do anything from the movie, the 1939 movie. So we talked about this when we talked about in that episode. In the book, it's silver slippers, because that was actually the big currency for the time. But when they made the movie, because it was Technicolor, they're like, well, we're not going to do silver. That's boring. Let's get ruby slippers. And so they own the ruby slippers. So there's certain things that are in the movie they couldn't use in the play. But now that they're doing a movie based on the musical, they were allowed to put some things in. So that's what's been a bit different. But I was actually really interested in sort of the journey of this movie. And a lot of actresses were attached. I mean, a lot of people, Selma Hayek wanted to do there was going to be a TV series of Wicked, and it wasn't going to be musical at all, which I still think they can do.
I kind of do too. Absolutely. I thought that as well. Yep.
Yeah. But like Nicole Kidman's been a part of it. I mean, there's so many people that have been a part of this, but in just to break it down, kind of like the brass tacks, it does get picked up to be a Broadway musical in the early 2000s. And then they created the show basically in San Francisco. It was written before that, but then, with tryouts, they try out a show. And the whole thing is that the audience knows, like, this is a thing in motion. Not everything's going to be here. They're trying things out on Broadway. Right. Yeah. So they always they decide, oh, we'll move the song here and put it there, or we'll take this joke out, or we'll put this in. And so San Francisco really has, they still write about Wicked all the time in San Francisco, because it's so a part of the culture there.
Yeah. I just want to get back to the book for a quick second. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Just to give you an idea of how different the book is from the musical, if you've never read the book and you love this musical. So the beginning, and if you've seen the film, there is some stuff from the book that's incorporated in the film. And I think it's mainly all the scenes of Elphaba's early childhood. Mm-hmm. Because in the musical, and we also read the script, by the way, we should say. Yes. In the musical, it kind of just briefly mentions, like, quick, here's her backstory. And she's green, and here she is. And in the movie, we go much more into her early childhood, and that's kind of more out of the book. But the whole thing about, in the book, she's just enrolled as a student in Shiz University. And that's just like the first part of the book. And then there's like a little bit of a time lapse of 5 years. And I'm just going to read you the synopsis of what happens 5 years after they leave Shiz University. This is how different it is from the musical, okay? So 5 years later, Elphaba reconnects with former schoolmate Prince Fiyero, now married with 3 children, and the two not married to Glinda, married to somebody else, and the two begin an illicit affair. So Elphaba and Fiyero begin an illicit affair. He's married with 3 kids. Elphaba makes an attempt at assassinating Madame Morrible. Fiyero is caught in Elphaba's hideout and murdered by the wizard's secret police force. And blaming herself for his death, Elphaba takes refuge in a convent. So there's this whole thing where she's hiding out in a convent. And then years forward from there, she goes to Fiyero. So Fiyero lives in that castle Kiamoko, which is in the musical as well. And she goes to see his family, his 3 kids, and to beg their forgiveness because she's caused his death. And she has a child with her that we're to understand is Fiero's child. Mm-hmm. And and then she stays with his family, but his wife is not having her apology. Like, I don't, big deal. He's dead and he cheated on me with you. And while she's staying in the castle with Fiero's, Fiero, who's dead, his family, that's where she discovers the grimoire.
Okay.
In the castle there. So it's a completely different twist and turn of how the play. So the musical, as musicals do, you know, like when we talked about Oklahoma, for instance, the Oklahoma, the musical has almost an opposite message and focus of the original source material.
Yep.
Which was definitely about like indigenous people and their rights at a time when Oklahoma was becoming a state and people didn't know how they felt about that. Whereas in the musical, people were like, we're going to be a state, you know, it's so totally different. And this is what happens when we have adaptations. And then of course we have further differences when you then take a musical and bring it to the screen. So again, I've never seen the musical on stage. I've only seen clips of it. And whenever they've done like the Tonys or, you know, sung it on late night shows, and as they sometimes do, I've never, ever, ever seen Wicked on stage. It is actually, I think it's actually playing in San Diego right now.
It's playing everywhere right now. That's another thing. It's so popular. It's hard to get tickets for it as well, which is also, you know, when it came out, it would be like 20 years ago. You know, I finally had my own apartment that I could afford, but I could only afford me. I like doing stuff like going to see a Broadway show was kind of out of my budget, but also it was just very, very popular. I knew people who worked on it, and I know people who, I have a friend that would fly in once a year from Atlanta to see it every year for
It's one of those.
It's one of those. Like, she got so much out of it, and I can see why now. I mean, I just think there's so many interesting messages and there's so many interesting ideas. I mean, I think also in the play, the animals are played by human actors wearing animal kind of makeup, whereas in the movie they actually do have the animals talking, and it's brilliant.
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
but, and that's something that's not really in the book. Not really. Like it's sort of, it's there, but it's not like a major plot point like it is in the musical. And I love that they chose that. I'm just so I want to know what you thought of the script.
The original Broadway script, I found it very easy to read. I found it very, I honestly, I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was funny. I love the way it just sort of lands with like Glinda showing up and just doing her thing. I mean, it sort of drops you in the middle of it. I don't know how long this musical is. People say it's kind of long.
I looked it up. It's like 2:15, 2:30.
Which is about
about 2.5 hours, a little shorter than this movie is, okay?
Right.
I agree. I thought the script was very funny.
Very funny.
And very, what's the word I want to look for? Here's the thing, is last week we did August Wilson's The Piano Lesson. And that script is a work of art. It is like, I was blown away by the writing of that script. It's just so gorgeous and multi-layered and all that. This is not that. But it, you know, when you at least not at first, I should say, because as you say, like when it opens up and it kind of drops us into this world, you're like, oh, there's Glinda and she's pink and fluffy and funny, and then there's Elphaba and she's like dry and caustic and has this kind of dry humor, and it seems very light, and then the layers kind of come in later on as it moves along. So when I first started reading it, I was like, yeah, it's no piano lesson, but I did really, it is very entertaining. And it pulls you in for that reason. And then, like I say, and then it builds and builds and builds until you get to the end. And now you're like crying and there's all these themes. So yeah, I mean, I wish I had something to say about the stage version, but I just don't have any experience.
We have a couple
with
of clips we can show.
Yeah.
Let's start with Kristen Chenoweth. This is her opening.
Okay, so we should say Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel. A big reason I think that for the longevity of this show, it seems like from what I have read and seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll see right now. We'll see right now why it's so great.
To Oz, please direct your attention to the blonde girl in the bubble.
It's good to see me, isn't it? No need to respond. That was rhetorical. Fellow Tonians. Let us be glad. Let us be grateful. Let us rejoice to find that here to see us through is a boy from Oz whose name is Hugh. You got my number?
I got it. It's Glinda from Wicked. Kristen Chenoweth, everybody. Hi.
Okay. She's adorable.
She's hilarious.
She's hilarious. I read her biography, her autobiography, her memoir.
Oh, did you?
She's adopted. And
really?
She found her father, and her father was her birth father was a member of ZZ Top. That's where she gets her musical ability. Because, and I forget which member, I'm so sorry, I'm sure I could look that up quickly, but when she met him, he started saying, do an A minor, do this key, do that key, and she could do them perfectly. And then he did it. They both had perfect pitch. And I know.
Her pipes.
And different kinds. She could do operatic. She could do a ballad. She could do a brassy show tune. She also is funny. And the thing with Glinda is she's conceited and she's full of herself and she's prissy and she wants everyone to kiss her butt and call it ice cream and all this stuff. And you still like her because there's something about her that's just not mean. She's just kind of this effervescent, self-confident person. And it's like, who do you get to do that? And she's like 5 feet tall. She's like really tiny. And
she's teeny. She's a teeny little doll.
Which works. Like also that works
perfect.
for the character. If she were 6 feet tall, it'd be totally different. But she's like, it's just anchors it like right away. Like that's how she shows up in the show. And immediately you're like, okay, where are we going now? You take me wherever you want to go. And it is spectacular. It is wonderful. And I can see why they loved it so much. But once I did find it hard to read the script because there weren't a lot of directions with the script. That I got. I found it once I saw the movie and I went back to read it, I got it much better. That's another thing. Like I just have a hard time picturing what they're talking about until I see it.
Where again, like it depends, different, we read a lot of play scripts here at Book versus Movie because we do a lot of play to movies, as we talked about last week. And different writers handle that differently. Some of them like really paint the picture, and you like last week again, to bring up the piano lesson again, we knew exactly what that home looked like. We knew what the piano and where it was and what the table and the chairs looked like. We know all of that stuff. And some of them are a little more loosey-goosey. And from what I saw of different clips of different productions, some of the, the different productions kind of take it in slightly different directions with the settings and the way that they've staged the different numbers and all of that. And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. It kind of makes it fun to see the Boston one and then the Chicago one. And yeah.
Right. And it opens with the hat, the witch's hat, the black hat is on the stage, and then Glinda comes out. But it's like so this hat is supposed to be kind of janky and silly looking. And then it's something that, like, when they go to and I try to find out, somebody will probably find this out for me, but Shiz University, where did they get the name for Shiz? How did he come up with that? Because it's not from for shizzle, is it?
I don't know.
think so.
Excuse me.
Because that's 1995. He wrote it, or it was published
Correct.
anyway. So where does this come from? But when they go to the university, at first, also in the play, Elphaba has a younger sister who's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
And she's the one that's going to the school. Elphaba is raised because her mother had an affair with another man. And then that's why Elphaba is green versus her sister, who's not. She's more like our shade, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. But her sister's the one that's going to go to the Shiz University. But Elphaba then, they start to see her there. Like she meets the professors there and stuff like that. I forget where I was going with this, but they're just different. Elphaba is immediately in the movie. She's immediately brought in to be in the school, whereas in the musical they take a long.
It's a little right. It takes a minute, and in the book she's a student from the very beginning, just like her sister. So,
which I like better. I don't think you need to.
I thought that too. I thought, why are we spending time with, like, what's this? There's no reason for that. They could both be students, and the dad could just say, I'm making you responsible for your sister. Like, that's all they had to do.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like that was not a necessary, not necessary to show her powers. We could have seen them elsewhere, like in a classroom setting or something like that. I know that was one of the things that I was like, yeah, I'm not sure that, 2 hours. What's the runtime of this movie? 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that.
Say though, and I did stop at one point because I had to watch something else.
I did too.
But I the length
enjoyed it very much.
I was completely absorbed. I didn't check my phone. I
either.
didn't do anything. I was like completely into it. But the story is that they go to this university and they're discovering their powers. And Glinda's like very spoiled. She has her own suite at the school, and everybody adores her, and she like loves it. And then she and Elphaba then become roommates, and then they become friends, and then they're going to combine their powers to whatever they want to do. And in the end, they're going to Oz, and they meet the Wizard of Oz, and then he's much more.
And like Dorothy, they discover he's a fraud.
He's a fraud. He's a shyster. He's not who he says he is. And so he and the professor from the school, what was her name?
Madame Morrible.
Thank you. Michelle Yeoh plays her in the movie. Like they kind of combine their talents to bring Elphaba, who they realize is the one who has the real power. Like they don't even know what to do with it. And in the play, and it ends in the first act here, by the way. This is just the first act for this movie.
The movie just covers the first act. Yes, correct.
Yeah. So the second act is coming out in this following November, but it ends with they met the Wizard of Oz, they escaped. And now Elphaba is going to go off and fly. And whatever Elphaba is going to do, we're going to find out.
So the thing is, and again, this is now we're completely away from the book. We're not anywhere near Maguire's book anymore. Elphaba, and it's so wonderful that we set it at this point in these two young women's lives where they're trying to figure out who they are. They have their experiences that they've brought with them. And when you're in college and you're like your first time sort of on your own, but not completely on your own, people are still kind of overlooking everything you're doing. Right. And they've all heard about this wizard all their lives, just like in the Wizard of Oz, like he will grant your heart's most deepest desire. And Elphaba, up until the point where she meets the wizard, she thinks that her deepest heart's desire is to no longer be green, because this has been a source of such pain for her and bullying and so on. Mm-hmm. And then when she meets the wizard and discovers that he is in fact just an ordinary dude, like acting big, with a big platform and what all, she decides, oh, I actually just want to be me. I don't think I want to change after all. And this guy doesn't have the power to change me, and nobody did. I'm the only one who has the power to change me. I just want to be myself. And hey, if I can just accept me for who I am, she realizes, like, I am unlimited. She could do anything. Right. And she's trying to explain this to her friend who is also, who's very popular. I'm not going to sing that. Who's very popular.
You can't get it out of your head, right? Once you hear
No,
that.
it's all the songs are so stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Her friend who's beautiful and everybody loves her, but she also knows Glinda really well and knows part of that is a front. And so she's trying to explain to Glinda, don't you see, like if we just accept who we are and love ourselves for who we actually are, there's nothing we can't do. Like Gina Tay, there's nothing we can't do. And that's where we have intermission. And then we have that wonderful Defying Gravity song. So her Elphaba's eyes have been opened. Glinda's not so much. She's not quite there. But she also hasn't had to walk the path that Elphaba has had to walk, right? So she's not quite there yet. And all of this is a flashback. As you say, like the show opens with the hat on the stage after Elphaba has been killed. Elphaba has been murdered. Little girl, by means of a little girl sent with a bucket of water. And Glinda, the Glinda that we meet at the very, very, very beginning is a different Glinda than we meet, at Shiz University. So it's also the story of how she finally comes to realize what her friend had tried to tell her right before intermission. And that's where the movie ends. And we'll get into the whole movie in a little bit. But then you come back from intermission, Margot, and there's a whole other section of the show. There's more to the story.
Which I'll be honest, I didn't really go into that too much because I figured the movie ends here, so I'm just going to leave it there and I'll wait until it comes out the second part.
Yeah, I thought about that, but I continued reading just because I was curious to see if there was more of the original book that kind of got brought in. Not really, just sort of thematically, I would say there's some themes going on there, but just to give us the broad strokes. When we come back, Elphaba is now officially the Wicked Witch. Everybody's like, she's wicked. Nobody mourns the wicked. And she's owning it. She's like, yeah, and Glinda, who, again, not quite there yet, not quite as evolved as her friend, she's dabbling a little in the fascism, shall we call it? She's dabbling a little with the Madame Morrible and the wizard, and they are dazzling her with the promise of power, basically, and she gives into that for a little bit. Then we've got Nessa Rose, who I think, does the father die, and then Nessa Rose is now the governor of Munchkinland? I can't remember. But they are afraid of Elphaba. They're afraid of everybody's afraid of Elphaba's power, but for different reasons. The wizard and Madame Morrible are afraid because they realize that she's powerful enough to expose them. Mm-hmm. And so they create an enemy, and they turn everybody in this land of Oz against Elphaba and do everything they can to persuade her to get within their grasp so they can either turn her to their side or destroy her. If they're not going to be able to use her, they want to destroy her. And so ultimately, Madame Morrible, who we learn specializes in weather, she arranges for a little twister, just a little twister, just to scoop up a little house in Kansas and dump it on Elphaba's sis with the silver slippers. And then Glinda, and it makes you watch The Wizard of Oz in a whole new light, right? You realize, so Glinda was in cahoots with the wizard, and Madame Morrible, who's not in the original at all, but Glinda's in cahoots with this fascist regime to murder Elphaba's sister and steal the silver slippers by means of a little human girl who's also been abducted and thrown into this world. She's a monster. So then the story, then we know what happens. Then we're in the world of the Wizard of Oz. And so everyone's pursuing the witch. And eventually there's the whole thing with Fiyero, the bucket of water. And at the very, very end, as everyone is like, ding dong, the witch is dead, which is a different, here it's nobody mourns the wicked. Glinda, you see Glinda in a whole new light by the end of the show. Yeah, she realizes like, ooh, I made some choices.
Mm-hmm.
And she does right in the end. She does right by her friend. I just read this last little bit.
Yeah.
She confronts. So we're assuming that you know what happens if you're watching or listening to this. Like, again, I can't. Why would you be here if you didn't know what happens? So I'm not even going to give you a spoiler alert. Of course, we're going to spoil it. Glinda confronts the wizard with the elixir. Oh, Glinda finds that elixir. Where does she find it? In the hat. She finds it with the hat. The hat on the, when the witch melts, there's the hat and the bottle of elixir, because she's always keeping that green bottle of elixir with her.
Right.
And so Glinda sees the bottle of green stuff and is like, this belongs to the wizard. She recognizes it. And she goes back like, hey, dude, what's up with this green stuff? All the pieces come together. The wizard is the man who had the affair or, bewitched Elphaba's mom into an affair. And so he is Elphaba's biological father. And the wizard is like, bye, bitch. He's like, oh, gotta go. Just like in the Wizard of Oz, like, oh, time to get in the hot air balloon. Oh, no, there's no room for anybody else. Bye. And there he goes. And the big moment, and again, I've never seen this on stage. I'm sure it's very fun, and everyone, if you watch any of the clips, everybody, the audience just goes insane. Rap door opens in the stage, and out pops Elphaba, and Fiyero shows up, and he's like, oh, Elphaba's dead, and the trapdoor opens. Elphaba pops out. She's like, no, I'm not. And the two of them depart Oz together, and Glinda, who could easily have said, like, they're actually alive after them. She doesn't. She's like, oh, isn't it? Aren't we lucky? The wicked witch is dead. Ding dong. And that's the end of the show.
That's great.
I'm assuming that's what's going to happen in the second movie that's coming up. So again, totally different than in the book. We are not anywhere in the realm of the original book anymore. Also not in the realm of the Wizard of Oz.
Right. So
completely different work of art using the same characters. Kind of like a commedia dell'arte of the United States, if you will. So can we talk about the movie now?
Well, let's, I wanted to play a clip just of Adina.
Yes.
So this is how the musical ends. And this is from the 2004, Tony Awards. And you have to see Idina Menzel or Adele Dazeem if you're John Travolta.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Hard. It's a tough name, and he's reading from a cue card or prompter, and but you'll see for yourself. Here it is.
You'll see for yourself, and also, I gotta think, being a newbie to this whole scene of Wicked, my takeaway is that the casting of Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel was everything to the longevity and success of this show.
I say so.
Well, let's just watch it. Watch it.
Defying gravity, I'm flying high, defying gravity, and soon I'll match them in renown. And nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down.
I believe that was her husband, Taye Diggs.
I
I
think
think
so.
they were married at the time.
Goosebumps.
And
You know,
she was in
oh, go ahead.
Rent. We talked about Rent last year. She was in that as well. This beautiful woman, like who
So
can
talented. Just like Kristen
sing.
Chenoweth. It's
Right,
just,
both of
how
them.
do they put all this talent in one woman? I don't get it.
I'm
It's so unfair.
known by my friends, especially musicals. If you see me watch a musical in the theater, I will cry at some point because I'm so overwhelmed by how talented everybody is. Like down to like the little characters on
Me too. I
everybody.
get overwhelmed by the dancer who's all the way in the dark, all the way
Right.
upstage, and I'm crying for them. I'm just
I,
so happy for them.
I'm so happy. Yes, I bet this was thrilling. And then then you have to go out and have a drink or something. You have to wait 15 minutes and then come back and see the rest of the show. It must have been such a buzz. I bet it was fun.
So exciting. Everybody always says that is just the peak of the show. That number, Defying Gravity, is just the peak of the show. Some people even are like, why have it come back after intermission? But it didn't occur to me until just now, because I've seen this number multiple times by multiple performers, and of course in the movie. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Oof.
But whoa, to me, the staging and the arrangement of that number is very much. Oh gosh, hold on. Give me a second. What is your name? What is your name? Oh, yes, I remember. Okay, hold on. Yes, it's yeah. I'm going to find a clip and I'm going to put it in our Facebook group. And tell me if you do not think that this staging of of Defying Gravity is not borrowing very heavily from Wagner and Brunhilde's battle cry in the De Valkyrie, I think is part of the it's that I'm not even going to attempt to sing Wagner. Sorry, y'all. But where she's got the helmet and with the wings and the shield, and she's up on this cliff and she's singing about, how they're gonna. Anyway, I won't get into the plot of the ring cycle. But the staging is so similar with the broom. Like she's got this spear in Brunhilde does in the Wagner piece, and that she's brandishing almost exactly the same way that Elphaba has the broom in her number. It really, really struck me this time, especially in the movie.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And that famous that note that she sings at the that whole thing. There's so many supercuts, by the way, on YouTube of all the different Elphabas doing that. You really want to get it stuck in your head.
They made me think. I saw yesterday for F This Movie Fest. They did all these movies from '98, and they had The Big Lebowski and Julianne Moore wearing like that outfit. Did you ever see The Big Lebowski?
Oh, yes.
There's that whole sequence where it's like a Busby Berkeley musical because Jeff Bridges' character is super high, the dude. And he's like going through the legs of all those girls like that. And then there's Julianne Moore, and it's like 2 bowling balls are on her breasts.
Yeah.
And she's like that. That's like that just popped into my head. So anyway, yes.
It's gorgeous. It's just beautiful. But you have to have the skill that you have to have to these roles. You got to have some real chops. And you have to be funny.
And do physical things like stunt work, because you're going to be like in wires.
You're going to be on wires.
You have to do drama.
You are.
You have to project your voice, but you also have to have people, like there's going to be quiet moments and people need to, there's so much. That's why like I cry when I watch these shows, because I'm so like impressed with everybody. Like it's spectacular.
I'm very, very impressed. And I've never even seen the show on stage.
No, I've only seen clips and I read the script,
and I've seen some clips. Yeah.
But I like what I saw, and
Yep.
I enjoyed this. I enjoyed reading about it. But should we play the trailer for this movie?
Okay, let's just talk about this movie. Okay, here we go.
Fellow Ozians, the Wicked Witch of the West is dead.
Don't let her get away!
Let me tell you the whole story. Our paths did cross. She had her secrets.
Absolutely remarkable.
There is no fight we cannot win. Just you and I,
Why is it you're always causing some sort of commotion?
I don't cause commotions, I am one. Some of us are just different.
Listen to me. You can do anything.
I know.
All aboard the Emerald City!
Just follow the road. It's gonna lead you right to me. The best way to bring folks together is to give them a real good enemy.
Don't be afraid. It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
The wizard that there is or was is ever gonna bring me.
I'm already
They're
verklempt.
perfect. They're perfect.
I'm already a little
The
like
end.
I'm already a little like I might cry in the middle of all this. I forgot to
It's
mention
such a good trailer. How exciting! If you're just a diehard fan of this show, how exciting is this trailer?
I forgot to mention Stephen Schwartz does the music and the lyrics for this show.
Yes.
He should definitely get a mention here because these
Yeah.
songs are fantastic. It's John M. Chu is our director, and I'll just like read off some of the cast here. That's why I have my glasses on, so I make sure I get this correct. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba. Wow. I mean, and Ariana Grande, you and I were just talking off the air. How talented.
What lab developed these two women? Tell the people how old they are.
Cynthia is 38 and
What?
Ariana is 31.
How?
They look 10
How?
or 15 years younger. And
They're
but also-
playing
they're playing
college
yes,
students,
teenagers.
and I am totally blind. I'm all in. I don't doubt it for a moment.
They have also like in their performance, like their energy is always there. Like they're always kind of like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
They're so, and that's trying to do that on a film set when you're filming like 10, 14 hours a day.
And
you
the
know,
complication of all the effects and everything.
the green
What?
screens and the choreography and everything. And I was saying like Ariana Grande, like she can do anything. She's so funny in all kinds of ways. She does physical comedy like Lucille Ball, but she can also just do a look on her face and you're cracking up. I mean, just anyway, I'll keep going. Jonathan Bailey as Fierro, who's wonderful. I mean, I'm going to cry. Ethan Slater as the Bach Woodsman. They call him the Woodsman here. So that's,
I know.
I'm sorry. They look cute together. I know they're
really cute.
Bowen Yang as Fanny.
Fanny.
And
Which is a female role in the
right.
in
They
the
changed
stage
it
play. Yeah.
and put Bowen Yang in everything, by the way, as far as I'm
Maybe in
concerned.
everything, please.
Yeah. That's
I need to have his face reacting in everything I ever see from now
I need
on.
that. Yeah. Peter Dinklage as Mr. Dillamon, who says the voice.
Oh, he's so moving. it's a voice performance, and I am just like, again, I'm in goosebumps the entire time. And I remember, people, I am watching this on my phone.
She's on her phone. I'm
In
on
the
my
airport.
couch.
In the airport, y'all. And I'm like,
It's
this
so
goat.
good.
Oh my, what's going to happen to him?
Michelle Yao as Madame Morrible. I mean, like, come on. Like, what are we even talking about? Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. I mean, come on. Like, that's Marissa Bode as Nessa Rose.
She's wonderful.
She's wonderful.
Because you know, if you know what's going to happen with this character, because again, she's the Wicked Witch of the East.
That's
who gets
right.
the house dropped on her, right?
And then
she has a whole story arc that we haven't even seen yet. Not really. With Mr. Bach, the Munchkin.
Where they give him and they have like also Bronwyn James as Shen Shen. So she and Bowen Yang are like the two, like they're sort of like funny. The audience surrogate, like they're kind of taking things in but they're so funny, and it's God, where do we even begin? It's so well done. They have a lot of nods. But they got the permission finally was to take some ideas from the 1939 film, which Warner Brothers have, and this is Universal that has this movie now. Yeah. So there's a lot of politics, and making people happy and making sure everyone gets what they want, and they do just a brilliant, beautiful job.
And I think that's really. And we talked about this last week with the piano lesson, that when you do an adaptation, ideally, you are taking your source material and you're bringing it to another level that is exploiting, the medium that you're working in, whether it's the stage or the screen. And then, in a way that is kind of building out from your source material, maintaining, if not increasing, the quality of it, and the themes and all of that. In this case, again, we have our original book, which I would say the stage play, although there's a lot of departure to me, because again, the book, it's fine. It's a good book. It's just not my thing. The stage play really kind of takes the main themes of the book and packages them in a way that is amazing for a Broadway musical. Clearly. Now we're going to screen. And where do you go from this stage play? You've got to bring more. What are you bringing in that's more? And I think you couldn't have brought it to the screen without a nod to that movie, without a nod to 1939 Wizard of Oz. We would have been like, what are we even doing here? Why am I in a movie theater watching this? So we're going to weave that in. How? How? There's, for instance, and we didn't even talk about the book of the Wizard of Oz that much. In the book of the Wizard of Oz, the original book that we talked about however many years ago we did, because we've been at this for over 10 years, y'all. Yes, the silver slippers, there's silver slippers in the original book. Another thing about the book that is not in the 1939 movie is that the quote-unquote Emerald City, remember, is white. It's actually white.
Right, and they wear green glasses to see the emerald. Right.
The wizard proclaims, and it's not always green. I think at other points it was different colors. At this particular point in time, it's being called the Emerald City, and you cannot enter the Emerald City without wearing these green spectacles, so that everything looks green. Everyone is wearing the green spectacles, and it's weird looking. If you look at the illustrations, it's really strange looking. Mm-hmm. So they did away with that, which I totally agree with, for the 1939 movie, because it's Technicolor, and why not just make everything green? Because that's so much fun.
Yeah,
it's great. And we kept that. We kept that whole thing about the green, and also there's the green, and then the fact that Elphaba is green. So that is also very important and significant. She does not put it together right away, but anyway, you have to have some threads from the 1939 movie in order for this to be an elevation or an evolution, I should say, from the Broadway show. And I think I'm so impressed by how they chose. It's very subtle, and it's not like, here it is, here's your Easter egg. It's very well done in a way that is serving our narrative of this story. And also incorporating some of those elements from the book that aren't in the musical, like we said, some of those scenes of Elphaba's childhood in particular, and the stuff with her parents.
Mm-hmm. I loved that stuff, by the way.
Little Elphaba, how adorable is that child? I just want to scoop her up.
And it's because her mother had an affair with what turns out to be the wizard, but she had a fling, and that's how and so the father knows this, of course, and so he treats her like she's
out on her.
Takes it out on her, which is like adds to her anger, which girl, I get it. Like you're
Can we just talk about what a bad father he is?
He's terrible.
He takes out his resentment towards his dead wife on his child, and also spoils his other child. Absolutely rotten. Failure.
Yes. Which is why in the play, in the musical on stage, she comes in and she's actually just escorting her sister and just going to help her get settled. Then she's supposed to leave. But in the movie, they wisely just had them both enter at the same time.
Yeah. It makes much more sense. The dad, it's a movie about bad dads. It's a story. It's about bad dads. Poor Elphaba has two bad dads. And yet she manages to overcome it. Yay, Elphaba. It's so good. They really took their time to make sure that I haven't heard anybody who says that they're a big fan of the Broadway show have anything bad to say about this movie.
No, and it's also, you don't need to see, honest to God, you don't need to see the show to enjoy this movie.
No.
If you think that's going to be a barrier, it's not. You're going to totally understand what's happening. They make that nice trick of like making it accessible for people who haven't, but it also makes you curious about, well, what really did happen in that.
Really
I need to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a super good job about that. I felt like, I could totally see how if I were a super, super, super fan of this musical and I've gone and I've seen it on stage, a zillion times, and I've traveled all over the country to see it, all the different productions, I would still super enjoy all of the thought and detail that goes into just the university, let alone Emerald City, Elphaba's, the governor's mansion of Munchkinland, the costumes.
The costumes are incredible. Especially Elphaba, those black, that coat that she has.
The boots. when the little girl, little Elphaba in her little boots, I'm dying.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. Like when I saw those little boots, I was a mess. Like, oh, no. So, yeah, just really considered every frame, the composition. Like you can pause this movie anywhere and you have like a perfect cell, a perfectly framed, composed scene that you're looking at. At the beginning with the effigy that's being burned. You can't have flames on a Broadway stage, not to that degree. You can have like a little bit of a little flash, but not a giant burning effigy 3 stories high of one of your main characters. You can't do that, but you can do it in this movie, and it's spectacular. It's very impressive, and again, it's foreshadowing of what we're going to see at the very end of this movie. And Glinda, who was present at the effigy burning, and it was also present at the other moment, she's the only one who gets it. And also the fans. Super good. So thoughtful. Everything is so thought
smart
out. And there's a lot of extra stuff. So again, a lot of speculation about why is it so long? It's long. It is, y'all. It's long. And if you need to take a break, and you're just, it's fine. It's fine. But I do really want to see this on the big screen. I really do want to go. I have a friend who already was like, we're going to go see this. There were some choices that when they came up, I was like, oh, fun Easter, like the whole thing with, of course, how can you not have Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel?
Right. Well, yeah.
Of course you're going to have them somewhere. Of course you have to have them singing. Of course you have to have Idina do her groundbreaking original. Of course she's going to do that. How are you going to make that happen? So certain numbers, and like this number with Fiero's number where they're in the library, that amazing library. In the musical, it's not like that at all.
It's the book house.
It's the book house. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing.
So cute.
But adding all of this extra stuff, it goes right up to the line of being a little too much. Right? It goes right up to that line. If it had been a little bit more, I would have been a little bit over it. But as they just pull back enough that it's like even Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, it gets to be very Jeff Goldbluming. Very, very, all the Jeff Goldblum tropes. He's just bringing all of them out. He's
having
Dr.
fun.
Malcolm. He's the Fly. Just enough. It's just enough. If it were a little bit more, I would have been over it. But it was just enough Goldblum for me. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's perfect. I cannot wait to see part 2.
Do you want to play another clip?
Yes. Let's see. What do we have next?
It's
have
number 5.
5. Which doesn't mean anything to y'all, but you know what else? As we're discussing and gushing over this film, this number in particular was where I suddenly became very aware of the masterful lighting of this film. They've created this whole, it's not like Hogwarts, where everything is candlelit and torchlit.
Right.
It is a fantasy, it's again, but it is also like Hogwarts. Let's face it, it's Hogwarts, but in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
It's like, remember in Harry Potter, which I know we're mad at her, but in Harry Potter, the one, it's Goblet of Fire, where there's like the French school with the girls like, remember those? And then the Russians. And it's like, if there was an American school, it's Shiz University.
Yeah.
Right? So we built this whole artificial thing. And yet the lighting is so realistic. The way that I love that scene because they're in a suite that was supposed to be Glinda's, private suite. But the lighting is as if, and there are different times of day. So we get the different time. It's so realistically done. Also, like when they're in the classroom with Professor, is it Dillamore? Is that how his name is pronounced? Mm-hmm. And he's about to explain to them about how it used to be with the animals teaching in the university. And he dims the lights, he shuts the shutters and that whole thing. The scene where the animals are singing, I love the way, that's very different than it's done on the stage version. That Elphaba is kind of peeking in and I love that number. The lighting, they're in this private little enclave. The Oz Dust ballroom, not in the show at all, I don't think. Gorgeous. Just spectacular lighting. The show, again, that part where they get to Emerald City and it's Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth and that whole show with the footlights and everything.
The art direction's incredible. Like the steampunk kind of atmosphere for some of it, especially for the wizard, because he doesn't really have magic powers. He's just trying to make everything look like it's, he just has little tricks and he tries to make them look
scary. And it is like genuinely, I can imagine, like, I'm sure when I go and see it on the big screen, it's going to be big and huge and scary. It's massive. It's filling up the whole screen, just like in the 1939 movie. I love, there's just so many details. Again, you could pause this film at any point. When Elphaba first shows her powers at Shiz University, and the face of the clock that has the wizard on it breaks off, and underneath is the clock filled with animal teachers.
Yeah. Yeah, the animals I really loved. And also...
They're so well done.
We talked about it, and
the bear.
The bear, and also the winged monkeys, which is what comes from the original book.
Oh!
The scene where they sprout their wings, I was so upset.
It's very upsetting.
It's upsetting, but it's supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to understand, like, he's enslaving these animals by putting them through these physical manifestations that they're not natural, and it's not what they want. You know, we're like, we'll let you live, but we won't let you talk, but we'll give you wings, so you'll be my spy. Like, it's the things that they do to use the animals for their own nefarious purposes, which is just, it's so well done. It's just so, it's so groovy. But they do have a scene, and we'll play this next, which is the song that everybody knows. And it's like, why nobody made a song about this sooner? Just this topic of being popular should have been I mean, that's a song that, been, you know.
Yeah, not quite in this way. You're right. There hasn't been one, not addressing it in quite this way.
Right. It's just very blatant. Like, I'm going to teach you how to be popular.
Yeah, here we go.
It's important. You need to know this.
This was the one. Okay. It's super good. They did it as well as they could possibly do it. I still like Kristen Chenoweth better. I still think in this number, I just mean this number. I think she's so funny.
She's very chirpy.
Very chirpy, yes, in a way that I think she's just good at doing that chirpiness. She's very good at it. And when I've seen the different clips of Kristen Chenoweth doing this number, it cracks me up every single time. And this close. I still kind of like Kristen Chenoweth a little better, I have to say. And I've never seen the show on stage, but yeah.
Well, you've seen that.
I've seen that
performance of that song like many, many times. But it's so like, everybody wants to be accepted. No one wants to be an outcast. No one. I mean, it's something like anybody can understand. Like, and also wanting to help someone who feels that way. It's very universal. I love this movie. Especially at the very end, and we'll play the clip at the end. But when she manifests into this point where she gets this broom, by the time she gets that broom, and she's now got the power, it's the art direction. The special effects, the CGI, everything is so well done that it's just so gorgeous. I can't recommend it enough.
It's just beautiful. I really buy the development of their friendship. They really have amazing chemistry. Their voices sound so beautiful together. That's another thing about, because again, Chenoweth and Menzel, those two voices together were so beautiful. And of course, we get to enjoy that in this movie, which is, again, goosebumps. And that first, I forget exactly the first time where we hear their two voices harmonizing with each other in this movie, Elphaba and Grande. It is just magical. Their two voices and their speaking voices as well are so interesting together in these scenes. I love it.
If either one of them, tonight is the Oscars for 2025, the day that we're recording this. If either one of them wins, I'll be thrilled because they're that good.
Seriously. And this is only part one.
This is just part one.
It's only part one.
Yeah. I mean, they leave you like, and honestly, I was like, oh, well, I could keep going. Let's just keep the movie going. I was kind of like, still like, okay, it could be 4 hours.
I mean, I had taken a break in between because I had to get on the plane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was ready for like, let's go. I want to know where are we going with this? Even though I know where we're going with this. Yeah, I just.
I'm going to see this in theater when it comes out.
Oh,
though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cannot wait. So many. There's so many. Just don't watch this on your phone. Please don't watch this on your phone, y'all.
Not for your first time, anyway.
Not that you won't enjoy it. You will. Now that you mention. So what I did was, and I'll tell you why. I bought the film on YouTube because I wanted to read the comments.
Sure.
I wanted to read what people had to say about the movie, because obviously the super fans are going to be. I thought if they're going to be out in force, they're going to be out in force on the comments on the YouTube version, and they were so touching. So many people. Somebody said, "My dad just died, and this movie is what's getting my mom and my mom and me through this week." All kinds of people. Like, I was bullied. So many comments.
A lot of that.
People just like opening up their hearts because they love and relate to this movie so much. Yeah, I recommend go check out the comments on the YouTube.
I will actually when we're done with this.
Yeah.
Also, it's Elphaba who's the outsider, but also the animals, which is why she's so attached to them. Which is now I get why when she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West, why she has the monkeys with her, because she feels responsible for them. I'm sure it's the goat. I just loved that. I mean, everything. They're rare.
I cannot believe how well they did the animals.
Really well done. The lion that's in the cage, the little cub lion, broke my heart when I saw that. Oh,
Seriously.
I'm a cat lady, so it's that was rough, but it's incredibly well done. Whatever you've been hearing about it, just watch it. It's spectacular.
I don't even know what else to say. It's just it's crazy
movie.
Good. What?
Book versus
movie. Well, excuse me.
I'm having the same tickle.
If we're talking about the Broadway show, it's not fair because I haven't seen it. I've only read the script and seen clips, which are excellent, as we've seen. If we're talking about the book, the original book, Wicked, versus the movie, of course, movie. I just think I love the way that the movie versus the original. I'm just going to talk about the movie versus the original book. The movie and the show are so much more about the relationship between these two women, and how through the choices they make, Glinda, the quote unquote popular one, who ends up basically becoming a puppet of the regime of Madame Morrible and the wizard. She also, just like Elphaba, she ends up just as alone as Elphaba does. She's literally in a bubble.
Right.
And so by the time we get to the end of this, the end of the next part, you will see like okay, you made your choices, and in both choices kind of ended up to you going solo. But which one came out on top? Which one is the happier person? We know. And of course, the whole thing just makes you watch The Wizard of Oz in a completely new light, which is always super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah,
The bubble was gorgeous also, by the way.
Oh, it's the art direction, the costumes, the effects are incredible. It's just the performances, the choreography is great. The stunt work is interesting. It's just an A+. Like
A+.
Whatever they spent, it was money well spent.
The selection, and I know they had to have put a ton of thought into this. They had the exact right color pink and the exact right color green. And the use of the pink and the green throughout this thing, no notes. Which
is very funny. It's very preppy, pink and green.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 It's great. It's
Yeah.
just wonderful. I
See this
cannot
movie.
wait to see it on a larger screen.
Yes.
So if we're going to talk about the original book, if we're pitting the movie against the original book, no question,
No question.
hands down, absolutely the movie. I am not a fair judge of whether we're talking about the musical or not. Never seen it. So I'm not even going to begin to step into that debate. But just, I know if you're listening or watching, you've seen this. You've probably seen the movie already. You've probably seen it several times already. You just want to hear somebody else talk about it. And I get that. That's why I wanted to read all the comments and the Reddits and all of that. Yeah, we'll just keep talking about it.
I never want to stop. Right. It's wonderful.
So let's talk about what we're doing next.
Something we wanted to do is we started doing musicals in March a few years ago. It's a very popular run of shows for us. And one of them we talked about originally, and it wasn't available in print, but now it is Gypsy. So we're going to cover Gypsy, and I guess we'll do the Natalie Wood version. I mean, there's also a Bette Midler.
We should also say
Gypsy many times, by the way. It's my favorite.
If you're new, we love us some Rosalind Russell. We sure do. Okay, we'll talk about it, but people want to poop on Rosalind Russell in this film because of Ethel Merman, who, talk about goosebumps.
Oh, well.
Have you ever seen Ethel Merman sing Everything's Coming Up Roses?
Yes, in Airplane.
Which she would do at the drop of a hat. Yeah, on Airplane. That's right. But I've only seen, again, just like with this Wicked, I've only seen the little snippets of performances of her singing that role. Mm-hmm. It's pretty moving.
Audra McDonald is starring in the version right now that's on.
Oh.
And it's like sold out beyond. Like it's
really?
Yeah, it's the toast.
I'll have to look for clips of that. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, she was sick for like a week or two with COVID, and it was like a big deal because people are flying in to see her in this role. Which
I would.
It's
if I could, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I could, it's a fantastic story, and I love Natalie Wood too. I think she's
and the book, y'all.
Yeah,
it's Gypsy Rose Lee. Well, we'll get into it next week.
Yeah.
But you will not be sorry to own that book. Just get that book.
Yeah. So that's what's coming up.
I was just want to say, if you enjoyed Auntie Mame, if you're like a fan of Auntie Mame, you just get Gypsy Rose Lee's books. Just get it. You will love it. Yeah.
So we're always looking for suggestions for, the book and the movie. So all those places I mentioned at the top of the show, reach out to us on social media. Our email, once again, is bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like some stickers, send us your address. We'll drop them in the mail for you. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at Brooklyn Fitchick for Threads and Instagram, and I'm at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok and Blue Sky. And also Book versus Movies on Blue Sky as well. And my YouTube is at my name, Margot Donahue. So I have some of these clips there. If they take them out of the show, at least I have some of those clips on their own in my feed.
Yeah, there's at least there's that.
Sometimes
apologies to those of you watching on YouTube. I'm sure it's going to all get cut out. They do it. They automatically take it out. We don't. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
because you are missing out.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to the show, for watching the show. If you're on your YouTubes right now, we'll be back soon with Gypsy. And in the meantime, I'm going to be popular.